Welcome in, Bills Mafia, to the Monday edition of the Air Raid Hour. And as I was talking with Dave before we went live here, all of our show notes went into the garbage at about 9 a.m. this morning when the Buffalo Bills announced the firing of head coach Sean McDermott. We're going to talk all of that and more, but first.
Welcome to the Air Raid Hour, a Cover One Network podcast. Here are your hosts, Judge Mathis and Tilt Money.
Bills Mafia, what a day it has been. Obviously, we were hoping for a victory Monday here at the Air Raid Hour, and we got quite the opposite here, Dave. The Buffalo Bills lose in heartbreaking fashion in the AFC divisional round, in controversial fashion in the AFC divisional round. So many things to talk about in that game, and honestly, it feels like it was 2 weeks ago. Like, it does not even feel like it was 2 days ago, because we got the monumental news this morning that Sean McDermott was fired as head coach of the Buffalo Bills, and Brandon Beane now takes on a new role, not just as general manager of the Buffalo Bills, but president of football operations. So a lot to get to tonight, Dave. Before we do, I want to start off the show by just thanking Coach McDermott. Right? I know you said you're wearing your outfit today as an homage to Coach McDermott. I know that, I've been a pretty big advocate of the Buffalo Bills moving on from Sean McDermott, but that in no way, shape, or form sort of takes away from what this man means to this city, what this man means to this organization. He deserves all of his flowers today, and I know he's getting it from a lot of his former players. 9 seasons as head coach of the Buffalo Bills, 8 playoff appearances, a 106-58 record, 5 AFC East titles, and he broke the drought, right? So this is a guy who brought so much to this organization. And I'll tell you what, right? Like, I moved from Buffalo to Arizona in 2016. Sean McDermott broke the drought in 2017, and I was going through a lot of feelings back then, right? Because I was thousands of miles away from the only town I've ever known. And to be able to go back home and experience that game and watch that game with my father, I'll never forget the look on Kyle Williams' face, the reactions from Jordan Poyer and Micah Hyde, the celebrations, like what that dude did to break the drought, and then the consistent winning that he has brought this team since. Like, we're going to look back 20 years from now and be like, remember the good old days when we got to sit and complain about getting knocked out in the playoffs every year, because at least we were there. At least we were in it. At least we had a chance every single year. So I just want to make sure that he gets his credit, because I don't think he went out the right way today. I think the Pagulas and Brandon Beane handled it terribly. Like, again, I believe the Bills should have moved on from Sean McDermott, but not like this, man. Not like this.
Yes, and I am wearing my patented Sean McDermott long sleeve tee to pay homage to him.
I love that you can still pull that off. I could never pull off a shirt like that. Not since COVID.
Well, you can't see the stomach, so that's why. Anyway, yes. So look, there have been a lot of times throughout the years that we've been critical of Sean McDermott, and rightfully so, right? In some of the situations that have happened at end of games, some of the in-game management decisions and all of that. But when you start to kind of like take a step back and look at the big picture of what he did for the team, for the organization, you can't help but think that, and look back at this fondly, sort of as time goes on, from the perspective of he was 98-50 in the regular season, 8-8 in the postseason, had a better winning percentage than Marv Levy as the head coach of the Buffalo Bills. You said it, broke the drought, the 5 straight AFC East titles. In 6 of his 9 seasons, the Bills defense was top 10 in yards per allowed per game. In 4 of his 9 seasons, we were top 4 or better in points per game allowed. So from a defensive head coach, his background being defense, he kind of he kind of did what he needed to do in that regard, and obviously the lack of the postseason success is ultimately what did him in. However, the timing to me feels a bit odd because if you look at sort of what has transpired for this team over the last couple of seasons, there was a time a couple years ago, might have been probably after 13 seconds, I would say, where it was like peak Fire McDermott season at that time. And at that time, no one was really saying anything about Brandon Beane, and really no one was ever publicly really criticizing him about anything. Something changed over the last couple years where that kind of shifted, and a lot more of the fans and even like the beat reporters and the like really kind of shifted their attitude and sort of what were the reasons for the shortcomings of this team the past couple seasons. And it started to shift more towards Brandon Beane. And I'm not saying it was like all Beane, no McDermott, but it really shifted that way. And the way this season ended, the way things kind of transpired in the last couple off seasons, you can make a case that this season, coaching wise, was one of McDermott's best, maybe since 2017, when he brought
Yeah.
the drought with this team, right? 2017 comes to mind. 2019 comes to mind when the Bills obviously made the playoffs with Josh Allen starting that second year for him. And obviously, like, there were other times in between, but like this year to me felt like a really good coaching job from Sean McDermott. So the
Yeah.
way the Bills went out, obviously it sucks. There weren't, in my mind, a lot of really
Yeah.
big coaching errors in the
Yeah.
playoff loss. But as some people have said, this is a culmination not of just one
Yeah.
game. As Bills Mafia says here, it's not a vacuum or just this year,
Yeah.
but Brandon Beane still being
But
failing.
that is
it's
but
kind
that is the one thing that makes me sick though, right? Like, no offense, right? No, like, I understand. I think you and I both were okay with the Buffalo Bills moving on from Sean McDermott, but there was a very specific set of circumstances from which we would want that to occur. You're not just firing him to firing him, right? Like, you are firing him because you think you can do this, this, and this, and that will lead to the change that we ultimately want to see. But what sort of makes me sick, right, is the fact that Sean McDermott is coaching his butt off this year with this piss poor roster that Brandon Beane has given him, right? He is out there with absolute dime store receivers, right? Josh Allen's throwing to dime store receivers in the fourth quarter. Sean McDermott is making it work when, they're down to Dane Jackson and Darnell Savage at safety. Like, Sean McDermott is making it work with the piss poor pieces. There was no pass rush yesterday from the Buffalo Bills at any point during that game, unless they blitzed. Like, he is making it work with the piss poor roster that Brandon Beane assembled for him. Meanwhile, Brandon Beane is sitting up in the press box with the ear of Terry Pagula, making Terry Pagula think it's all Sean McDermott's fault. Because that's what happened. That's what happened.
And
like,
look,
I'm pretty convinced that Brandon Beane is the one who got this all set in motion. I think Brandon Beane is the one who reached out to Tyler Dunn a couple of years ago. I think Brandon Beane is the one who started slowly using the national media to sort of drag McDermott a little bit, because I think Brandon Beane knew that a situation like this could occur, and he wanted something to save his ass.
Yeah, it very well could be. And again, I'm not saying, we necessarily should have kept them. There were definitely other times in the tenure where it was a worse coaching end to the season than this one, and worse coaching years, even though this team has won at least 10 games every year since 2019. That's the new standard right now that he established the standard.
Yes.
So in a way, he established the new expectations from what he did, and in a way kind of like ultimately cost him, because the expectations became Super Bowl at least appearance, probably, or not. And to me, I think the right move would have been to get rid of both of them, Beane and McDermott, together, because they were so closely tied at the hip together for all these years. They got their extensions at the same, right? Like, everything was kind of done in parallel with the two of them. So how does this really make that much sense to me that you get rid of one and not the other?
Yeah, it doesn't.
I just don't get that.
Yeah.
I don't get that.
And Jay Clark comes in and says, we're just hurling out accusations. Of course we are, right? Because you're never going to get the truth from the Buffalo Bills. Like, the fact, like, Terry Pagula and Brandon Beane should have been sitting on a podium today answering questions. Not tomorrow, not a week from now, today. The Pagula's statement on the firing of Sean McDermott was abysmal. There was literally a grammatical error in the first sentence saying he did an admirable job. You look at the word admirable. Admirable's for a guy like Jonathan Gannon who has like a losing record. Like he tried, guys. He did his best, right? But we're moving on, and everyone knows where I'm moving. Admirable is the kind of word you throw out for the Jonathan Gannons of the world. It's not the word you throw out for Sean McDermott. No mention of his records, his accolades, the things he did for this team, for this community. Like that was a piss poor statement. They are not going to, right, in my opinion, in a timely fashion, step up and talk in front of the media, right? And to me, I think it was the national people. Brandon Beane was feeding them information because all the national people were like, rumblings are Sean McDermott could be on the hot seat. And all the local people were denying that and saying, no, I think it's more Brandon Beane were on the hot seat. I think the Cover One Buffalo guys all did a really good job sort of laying it out this morning. If you want to go back and watch that podcast, if you haven't already. And it just looked like these are two guys that were in a power struggle. And Brandon Beane, like I said, while Sean McDermott was working his butt off, trying to get a not so great roster to 12-5 and give them a chance to beat the 1 seed in the AFC divisional, right? He gave him a chance. It wasn't him who turned the ball over 4 times, right? 5 times, really 4, but 5, right? It wasn't him that did that. And I get that we're not looking at in the bathroom, but it does rub me the wrong way that while all that was going on and Sean McDermott was putting the work, Brandon Beane was just in Terry Pagula's ear, blaming it all on him.
And let's take it a step further up the chain then, because it's like, then now we need to start talking about how Terry Pagula, the Emperor Palpatine, right, in the background of all this to the Darth Vader, if you will, like there's no repercussion for him. He's the owner of the team. But it just shows you, sometimes when analysts and reporters or whatever you hear Troy Aikman say this a lot too, where it's like, oh, it starts with ownership, the culture and this and that. And like the success of the team starts with ownership. And like a lot of times I kind of dismiss that because like they're not the ones putting the roster on the field. They're not the ones coaching, but like I'm starting to now think that, yeah, there is some truth to how good of ownership you have in some of the decisions that get made that can be like franchise altering, especially at that level, like for the GM. And I don't think Terry Pagula is a good owner. Like, I'm sorry. He's good for the reason that he's good in the sense that he kept the team in Buffalo and getting a new stadium. But from like an operations standpoint, a football standpoint, he is not a good owner. He's
not football smart. Like he's making money off of fracking smart, but he's not football or hockey smart. He's not running a sports organization smart. John Mill comes in with a comment, and I want to address it, right? I want to be fully transparent and honest. He says, Judge, you hated McDermott for years and wanted him canned. We can dig up all the tweets this year. You guys thrashing him 100%.
Yep.
100%. Like I'm on record. I said at the top of this show, right? I think Sean McDermott needed to go. Let me lay out to you the reason why I think he needed to go. In the last 6 playoff losses, 33.2 points per game, number 29th in defensive success during that time, number 27 in EPA per play during that time. During this 6 playoff drought where Sean McDermott's defense was not showing up in these losses, Josh Allen was historically great quarterback. I could pull up all the numbers, but I'm not going to do it outside of that one game on Saturday. There are 4 teams in the Super Bowl era that have won playoff games in 6 straight seasons. The 90s Dallas Cowboys, they won 3 Super Bowls in that time period. The 2010 Patriots, right? They went on a 6-year run where they won 3 Super Bowls, and the Chiefs dynasty, and they won 3 straight Super Bowls. The Bills are the only other team that have done that, and they haven't even made a Super Bowl appearance, right? It was time. 9 years is enough time. Sean McDermott was given a long enough leash, but you and I have both stated that the grass is not always greener, despite the fact that we think this is the right decision. And there has to be a very specific set of circumstances to occur after his termination that would make it worth it. And the Bills already failed at the first box that they needed to check. And that was making a full sweeping change and getting rid of Brandon Beane. You cannot say the last 9 years of not making the Super Bowl, or 6 years if you want to shorten that window a little bit, is on Sean McDermott and not Brandon Beane. You cannot make that argument. They are hand in hand tied together. So if Sean McDermott failed, Brandon Beane owns every single bit of that failure too, and he should not be employed right now. That's number one. And number two, you need to make damn sure the coach you are replacing him with is going to be the one that gets the job done. And there is no Liam Cohen, Mike Vrabel, or Ben Johnson on the streets right now, like there was last year. There is not, right? We are looking at Clint Kubiak, Joe Brady, Davis Webb, and Brian Dable smack dab in the face. That is what we're looking for. And maybe the Bills can make it work, right? I don't think a lot of people loved when the Denver Broncos brought in Gary Kubiak to replace John Fox, but it worked, right? But it worked.
They knew they only had like a year left or 2 years left with Peyton Manning.
I am rooting for whatever happens over the next year to work because I am a Bills fan and I want the Buffalo Bills to be successful. So even though right now I am finding it very difficult to root for Brandon Beane because I think he is a snake, I will do so and I will support the Buffalo Bills. We will be very critical this offseason. You're not going to see us blowing smoke up the GM's ass. If we disagree with their decisions this year, we're not going to sugarcoat it. But to me, and I think Nick Afaldi comes in and makes a great comment, poor timing, poor process. And that has Terry Pagula written all over it.
Yeah, I mean, look, people getting on me for saying like, oh, like, before Terry Pagula took the team, they were in the set. Yeah, like he got lucky hiring Sean McDermott. The reason they broke the drought wasn't because of Terry Pagula. Like he got lucky hiring Sean McDermott. Like I'm not a Sabres fan, but I can see what's happened with that franchise as well. Since he's been the owner, like you can't tell me that he's done a great job. He's like from a business standpoint, maybe he has, but again, from a football standpoint, I don't think he really has a pulse on making good decisions. So anyway, besides that, yes, poor timing. There's no obvious plan in place, right? Here to replace McDermott. The candidates in this cycle are not as good as they were a year ago. That just seems to be a fact. Maybe we'll get lucky and we'll get lucky again, but we'll see. Brandon Beane's going to be involved apparently in the coaching search. So I also think that maybe look, you have Josh Allen, so the job's going to be plenty appealing, but Brandon Beane now in the sort of vertical structure, does that make the job a little less appealing for coaches? Maybe it does. Maybe it does. We'll see about that. But also, yeah, I think that the timing is just odd and there does not seem to be a great plan in place here. And so, look, again, I am fine with the decision to make the change. I think the change should have been made more wholesale across the org, and that's my point. And number two, yes, the grass is not always greener, but would you rather be insane or support insanity, which is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results, or have the risk reward approach where the unknown maybe is more appealing than insanity? And I would say the unknown to me right now is more appealing than insanity.
One of my favorite quotes, and I've used it a couple of times on social media now, is nothing changes if nothing changes, right? Like,
yeah, it's good.
Something needed to be done. But in this situation we are currently in, and tell me if you agree in comment section, tell me if you agree. In the situation that we are in right now, in the landscape of the coaches that are available and looking at everything, nothing changes if nothing changes. I much rather would have reversed the outcome of today. I much rather would have woken up. I live on the West Coast, so it's acceptable for me to wake up after this news broke. I would have rather have woken up to the Buffalo Bills have parted way with general manager Brandon Beane than I would have the Buffalo Bills have parted ways with head coach Sean McDermott. Nothing changes if nothing changes. I don't know if who we can replace at head coach is better than Sean McDermott. I'm pretty confident you could find a GM who could probably make some better decisions, right, than Brandon Beane at this point. But I think where we're going, right, reading the tea leaves again, and a lot of people have been on this. The fan base has turned on Brandon Beane, right?
Yeah, he's a villain now for most. Yeah.
If Brandon Beane and Terry Pagula got on social media today, I don't think the Buffalo Bills quite understood the backlash that they were going to receive.
No.
I thought the Buffalo Bills thought that like Bills fans would just be taking to the streets, rejoicing that Sean McDermott was right. I don't know why the hell they would believe that, but I think they literally thought that is what would happen today. and we got our blood, right? We got it. We had our bloodletting from this 6 years of not being able to get it done.
Yeah, but you got a finger prick. You didn't get a
Yeah,
real
you didn't get
wound
a real
here.
bloodletting, right? Like, so to me, I think the Buffalo Bills are probably taken aback. Sean McDermott, or not Sean McDermott, Brandon Beane, who I think we are now realizing got a little bit of a Napoleon complex, right? Like, he doesn't like PFF grades, which I agree with you. You don't have to like PFF grades, Brandon Beane, but their data is exceptional. And apparently he has behind the scenes reached out to PFF and threatened to like pull their subscription because he doesn't like PFF grades and what PFF says about their players. Mind you, these NFL PFF subscriptions are not those little $89 a year things that we do. They're hundreds of thousands of dollars for the data that they collect on like PFF Edge and things like that. He's threatened to pull those subscriptions. Almost every team uses it. I think every team uses it, right? The Rams, who we love and we idolize and we talk about the analytics, they love PFF Edge. They use it all the time, right? You saw him lash out at Jeremy and Sneaky Joe, right, on his radio appearance, like all of these things. Like, you can tell this man's got a little bit of a Napoleon complex, and he's feeling the heat a little bit too. So again, I just don't know if the right guy is in charge making decisions right now. I don't even know if Terry Pagula, right, thinks that he has the right guy sort of at the head right now in Brandon Beane. I think the Bills are, again, reading the tea leaves, I think the Bills are leaving a little bit of wiggle room here. I think, again, it's hard to put your head into the mind of Terry Pagula because who knows the hell's going through it. But I think that in his mind, he's like, all right, well, this draft is going to be important. We need someone to get us through this draft. I understand that he promoted him. I get it. But I think what you're going to see is, I think you're going to see Brandon Beane be a part of the head coaching search. I think you're going to see Brandon Beane lead us through the draft. And then I think after the draft is over, there will be a couple of weeks lull. And then the Buffalo Bills will announce that Brandon Beane is stepping aside as GM. He will continue on as president of football operations. And you will see Terrence Gray or, oh gosh, who's
Brian
the other?
Gaines.
Brian Gaines. One of those two, most likely Terrence Gray. I got a feeling it'll be Terrence Gray, promoted to general manager of this football team. So I think by the time the season starts, we will not only have a new head coach, we will also have a new general manager.
And I think that worked okay, fine when you were bringing in McDermott in 2017 because there was no real expectation for this team at that time. And you had Whaley kind of sit there through that 2017 draft. And then you brought in Brandon Beane after. But to me, with where you are in Josh Allen's arc of his career, do you I just don't know that I want to let Brandon Beane take another swing at a draft. Like, I'd rather maybe someone else come in and do that. So I'm not saying you're wrong, by the way. I think that's totally plausible, but I'm also saying, like, that seems kind of like if one of the biggest complaints that we've all had is the roster construction and the inability to bring in playmakers, Pro Bowlers, whatever. You can discount what it means to be a Pro Bowler, and that's fine. But like impact players, then to me, it's like most of that finger pointing has to go to Brandon Beane. And do you trust him to do a draft in this interim phase? And I get people are saying, oh, look, some of these other players have gone elsewhere and like really shine, like Poona Ford and Tim Settle. And it's like, okay, you know, but like that's like you can count on one hand how many times that's happened out of all the players that have kind of come through the doors here, right? So yeah, I don't know, man. I think you could be right, but I also think I don't know that that's the right move.
And I just he's had too many misses in free agency at the wide receiver position. His biggest success since losing Stephon Diggs is what, Mac Hollins. Like, he already had Khalil Shakir in place. So, and I'll give him credit for that. The Bills trade up for Khalil Shakir. But then they've also only used him like a glorified running back. They haven't used him down the field. You know, he had a hit this year in Deion Walker. We don't know what we have in Maxwell Hairston. We don't know what we have in TJ Sanders, right? Like, we don't. He passed on Xavier Watts for Landon Jackson. Like, this is a guy who looked at the safety room with Taylor Rapp, Damar Hamlin, and Cole Bishop and said, no, I'm good. I don't need to add to this. And sure enough, Darnell Savage is getting beaten for a touchdown. Like, maybe I'll give him a pass on corner because they drafted Dorian Strong and you just, that injury sucked, right? But you could also look at the situation where without Sean McDermott's permission and without contacting Howie Roseman, he puts in a claim for Darius Slay, who doesn't want to come to Buffalo. That should have been Jamarcus Ingram on the field against Marvin Mims, not Dane Jackson, or at the very least, Jamarcus Ingram would have played all of week 18 and it would have been Maxwell Hairston on the field because Maxwell Hairston wouldn't have gotten hurt. Like, there are just decisions that this guy makes at the receiver position. The defensive line never shows up in the postseason. He has, for a team to be as up against the cap as the Buffalo Bills are, you'd expect there to be significant star power, like Philadelphia Eagles caliber star power. There is not. Like, there is a lot of guys. Dawson Knox is an $18 million cap hit next year, guys. I mean, come on now. Come on. Like, he overpaid Milano. He overpaid Taron Johnson. He's overpaid a handful of wide receivers, right? He wanted to keep the floor high, and in doing so, he capped the ceiling of this football team, and we promoted him. I just do not understand.
Yeah. And I think, like, you know, it's the same conversation that we've had in a way, you know, with McDermott and kind of looking back on the successes, because like there have been some good things that Brandon Beane's done, right? Like, he's put together a really good offensive line. You know, obviously James Cook, Khalil Shakir, like some of these draft picks have turned out well. Cole Bishop looks like he's ascending. Walker looks like he's been going to be a good player. I think Hairston was looking good before he inexplicably got hurt. And again, that's a Sean McDermott thing, putting him out there, right? So I think you can blame McDermott for that in that Jets game. Landon Jackson, big whiff, at least it looks like so far. And he was bailed out by Deion Walker, I think, hitting from that draft class. Haas, you know, obviously big fan of his. He was my no matter what tight end. But like, again, the impact players, like Deion Walker looked to be the most impactful player from this draft. It sucks that Hairston got hurt. You know, TBD on kind of what TJ Sanders will be. Some of the contracts, yes, when he extended those, I think it was universally
my problem
seen
is
as a
who
good
cares? My problem is who cares?
Yeah.
Who gives a crap? We know now that they weren't. They were bad moves. And so now, knowing that, like, even though in real time we thought it was good, it was bad. And knowing that and seeing his history and seeing his resume and seeing what he has done year after year, again, and this kind of goes to, like, think back to the playoff game, right? That we just had to witness. The referees all game were letting things go. Brandon Cooks is DPI'd in the end zone by Riley Moss, and they let it go. And then on the final drive, they call a DPI on Taron Johnson that doesn't exist. And that was a DPI on Trey White. But when you compare it to the DPI on Riley Moss, you're like, why aren't you calling it fair on both sides? That's the situation here. Like, why aren't you calling it fair between Brandon Beane and Sean McDermott? They are both responsible for the situation we find ourselves in, right? Brandon Beane is Riley Moss in this situation, or the referees treating Riley Moss in this situation, where they're letting him get away with DPI, but they ain't letting Sean McDermott get away with DPI, like the Trey White. Like, it's just, I don't understand the double standard here in Terry Pegula's eyes, and I can only imagine it is Brandon Beane was in his ear day after day saying, well, I would have done this and Sean did this, or hey, if Sean has these responsibilities and this is Sean's fault. So, you know, if it was just me making the decisions and I got to hire my guy, things would be different. Like, and that's what ticks me off is he's up there in the press box with the owner getting to chirp into his ear all game while Sean McDermott's on the field doing the work. Like, that rubs me the wrong way. Yeah.
And I think, again, I just put in the comments as well, like, one of the main points here is that, like, these guys both have had a lot of good moments over their tenures, and they both had bad moments, and they've been tied together, you know, contractually and through the eyes of, like, I guess everyone who's kind of witnessed like how this organization's gone, but they weren't treated that way when it came to kind of the axe dropping, right? They weren't treated the same. And so, yeah, it's kind of strange. It's kind of strange to me that they weren't treated the same. And like, people are asking, like, well, maybe Sean McDermott had more sort of, you know, maybe Sean McDermott had more pull on who to draft and who to try to go out and get in free agency. And maybe some of that's true, right? Maybe some of that's true. But like, I put on my personal view on the way they kind of portrayed these Bills embedded videos that we've seen multiple times over the years, these sort of behind the scenes sort of looks that we get from the Bills organization directly certainly paints a spotlight on Brandon Beane when it comes to the draft and free agency and some of these things that we see behind the scenes. Really, it shines a light on him as the
Mhm.
one making these decisions, right? Yes, we see McDermott in the room during the interviews and these things, but like a lot of the times we see it, it's like Brandon Beane's the one with the spotlight on him when it comes to
Yeah.
talking about these things. So like, which is it? I'm certain Sean McDermott has influence on
Yeah.
who was drafted, but
Yeah.
Brandon Beane's the GM, right?
And I'm on record, so anyone can go out and they can call it out. Like all year long, the narrative locally has been, hey, Sean McDermott doesn't have the say you think he has. Brandon Beane's making some decisions. It's irking Sean McDermott. The rumors have it like, hey, Sean McDermott was upset with Dalton Kincaid's availability, didn't really want to draft Dalton Kincaid. He was upset that they signed Joey Bosa. He was upset with the Keon Coleman pick. Like, there are things rumbling where, like, he was upset they didn't go after Jacoby Myers. He was upset about the Darius Slay thing. Like, Sean McDermott has made clear that there has been a rift between him and Brandon Beane, right? But I also think I find it very, very hard to believe Brandon Beane is making all these decisions without Sean McDermott. I just
Yeah.
do. Like,
Yeah.
so I think it's more hand in hand when you think than people think. But I
Mhm.
also think that it's just two guys who are finger pointing at this point. And right now, Brandon Beane's got the ears of the national media, and Sean McDermott's got the ears of the local media. I wouldn't be surprised if Derek Boyko's on his way out, the Bills PR guy, because he might be a Mr. McDermott guy, and Brandon Beane sees all these local stories that are very pro McDermott, and he might not want Derek Boyko around anymore because he might not see him as a very trustworthy mouthpiece. So it's going to be really interesting to see what the fallout is, like what the Ian Rappaports, what the Tom Pelisarios, what all these, the Adam Schefters, the Diana Rossinis. It's going to be very, very interesting to see what they say and what they're willing to be candid about over the next couple of weeks, because it seems like Sean McDermott's taking the high road. I don't know. Again, it's early, but his statement saying farewell was very, very classy. It'll be interesting to see who's leaking the stories that Brandon Beane was the problem, but I think it's going to be more heavy-handed on the Sean McDermott side. I think you're going to see a lot of stories leaking, and they're going to be coming from Brandon Beane and Terry Pagula and One Mills Drive. I think you're going to see a lot of stories leaking that Sean McDermott had more control over this roster than you think. Brandon Beane was handcuffed. Everything Brandon Beane did was for Sean McDermott. He needs a chance to do his own, blah, 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 blah. Like, so I think that you're going to see a lot of that in the coming weeks.
Yeah, and I mean, I wouldn't be surprised, and I guess we'll see if they're and Arthur Kraft comes in. McDermott was really in charge of why would you promote Beane if you didn't trust him to pick players? Why trust him now? I mean, I don't think either was in charge per se, right? I think that's why this whole thing is odd to me. Like they
The
seem
power
like
structure was weird. They both reported to the owner, neither of them reported to each other.
yes,
So,
correct.
and that's again what Terry Pagula is going to claim. All right, now we have a power structure. The coach reports to the GM and the president of football ops reports to me. We have a clear chain of command now. It wouldn't surprise me if, like, once a head coach is hired, they make that statement, I'm in charge of the 53 and he's in charge of the 48. Like, it wouldn't surprise me if those kind of statements came out. So it'll be interesting to see how things look over the next week. Let's move on to the future now, though, right? Like, so let's talk about this coaching search. Ben Albright has said that he expects Anthony Weaver and Eugene Avero to get an interview, the Carolina Panthers DC, the Miami Dolphins DC. With all respect to those two gentlemen, they're A, defensive minded, and B, I think there's another reason why the Buffalo Bills might want to hire those two individuals. I'm not going to talk about that, but there's probably a reason why the Bills want to interview those two individuals as part of their process. I don't think those two guys are going to be major players. Right now, I have seen legitimate people put smoke around Clint Kubiak, right? I think that was Jeremy White who put the smoke around Clint Kubiak, saying he heard from people that he usually trusts and usually gets things right, that Clint Kubiak was the guy. There's been a lot of smoke nationally around Joe Brady and how he's getting all these interviews and how the Bills love him internally and how they might want to promote him to head coach. There's also a lot of national spotlight around Davis Webb, the 30-year-old former backup quarterback of the Buffalo Bills, who everyone thinks might be the next whiz kid, sort of young offensive-minded head coach, even though he's never called plays. And then finally, there are some people who are, he has not had a head coaching interview in this cycle. I don't even know how trustworthy this is, but I'm going to say it anyway, right? There was Terry Pagula wasn't willing to throw money at Penn State to go pay Brian Dable because Terry Pagula wanted Brian Dable in his back pocket if he had to fire Sean McDermott. So I don't know. It doesn't not make
That's
sense.
some real like House of Cards, like
I don't
Frank Underwood stuff right
it's
there.
probably completely made up, but also kind of makes sense. Like
I mean,
it's a very good story to tell, right?
it's a very
So,
good theory. Yes.
but those are the four guys with smoke: Kubiak, Brady, Webb, and Daboll. What do you think of those four dudes?
Okay, so I would I want someone out of the 6 degrees of separation of guys that we've already had. I'll put it to you that way. So I would rather have a guy like Clint Kubiak come in, bring in like a really strong defensive coordinator like a Brian Flores, although that would be a lateral move for him. So
He's a free agent though, so he can sign anywhere.
True.
You
But
back up the Brinks truck for him.
yeah, I mean, like, so like a guy like that, like Clint Kubiak, is appealing to me. I personally would not be a huge fan of like bringing Daboll or Joe Brady, elevating Joe Brady. That to me, that just seems like you really think one of those guys is the one to get you over the hump. To me, that's not like taking a swing on the unknown. That to me is like you made a move to get rid of McDermott, and now you're kind of like backpedaling a bit into your own corner of resources that you already know. So like, I don't know. I'm not saying that that's not going to happen, by the way. I could totally see it happening, one of those two guys. But I would certainly like to see maybe more of an offensive-minded approach. If you fire a guy like McDermott, you would tend to think you would go in the total opposite direction, right? Other organizations we've already seen them do that, right? You see the Dolphins go away from McDaniel, and then they bring in Hafler, right? Who's defense. You see the Falcons get rid of Raheem Morris and bring in Kevin Stefanski, offense, right? Defense to offense. And so, and then a lot of times, it's offense to offense as well. So I don't know. I think Kubiak would probably be the top of my list right now, but I'm also not really that confident that we would get Kubiak either.
Yeah, you'd have to wait until at least February 8th, I think, to even interview him. Like, I think you can reach out to him and request an interview and put the feelers out and let him know that you're seriously interested, but you literally can't talk to that man until either if he's eliminated after this week or eliminated after the Super Bowl, which could be like 3 weeks from now. So that's a tough one, but Seattle waited for Mike McDonald for a very long time, and that paid off for them. So if you're the Buffalo Bills waiting for a guy like Clint Kubiak, I think could be worth it. And you're right. Like, dude, get out of that 6 degrees of separation. Find somebody new. You have a guy like Clint Kubiak. I was wholly impressed with what he did in New Orleans. I'm wholly impressed with what he is doing in Seattle. He is the son of a former head coach who was very successful in this league. He's got a brother who's the quarterbacks coach or offensive coordinator in San Francisco. I think he might even be the OC in San Francisco. He doesn't call plays.
Offensive coordinator. Yeah.
So like this guy comes from a coaching family. Maybe he brings his brother with him too. You never know. So to me, that's the hire. Like that to me, that's the gold standard right now is Clint Kubiak.
And especially in a cycle where there aren't that many young up and coming offensive guys available. Like it's kind of like him or bust, right?
I mean, if you look at it, right, like again, I would probably put Davis Webb at number 2 on that list just because it's like the unknown. It's like, well, he's young and exciting, and maybe the Bills catch lightning in a bottle with him. 3 would probably be Joe Brady, and then 4 would be Brian Dable. Like no one has given Brian Dable a head coaching interview. I just don't know if that guy has the temperament to be a head coach in the National Football League. If we hire a defensive-minded head coach, I wouldn't mind him as an offensive coordinator, but he's got to chill with the freaking the 10 personnel and getting his quarterback freaking murdered. Like he needs to show that he's going to be responsible and run the football as well as spreading out and throwing it. So love Daves, love him. But the dude, like Nate Tice put out a perfect tweet. Like the dude got way too reckless and sugar high when he had Josh Allen. And you saw it with Jackson Dart too. When he had that toy to play with, guy got like 9 concussions his first year. That's Brian Dable. right? That's Brian Dable doing that. So there's a lot to like about Brian Dable as a play caller, but he's got to find a balance. So I'd put him at number 4, just because I don't think he has a temperament to be a head coach. But you're looking at like offensive guys. Nate Scheelhaas, the guy who draws up the plays, passing game coordinator for the Rams, the guy who draws up the plays for Sean McVay. Notable guys in the past have been like Liam Cohen and Kevin O'Connell. Like the guys who have done this specific task for Sean McVay have had success in the National Football League, but he's very young. He's never called plays. You got Grant Udinski, first year in Jacksonville. Liam Cohen's the one calling plays, but Udinski might be the front runner in Cleveland, like to go and to pair with Jim Schwartz, who's still under contract there. Josh Grizzard, I liked him as a play caller in Tampa. Tampa fans hated him, threw him under the he was scapegoated there, thrown under the bus. He was fired as his first year as offensive coordinator. So I don't even know if you're looking at him. Then you're looking at Mike LaFleur, who flamed out when he called the plays with the Jets, but now he's back with the Rams, so he looks great. You've got Cliff Kingsbury. You've got, dude, that's it. That's the list. Like, and then you go down the road of these are the 2 names I thought Terry Pagula would go for. These are the 2 names I thought, whoa, Terry Pagula is going to really love these guys. And that is Mike McCarthy, and that is John Gruden. And if Terry Pagula has his hands on this process, I think those 2 names will pop up at some point.
Yeah. Oh, God.
Pickings are slim, dude. Like, the defensive side of the ball is, I think, where the excitement is. Brian Flores, I think, is exciting. Jesse Minter, I think, is exciting. Anthony Campanale in Jacksonville is exciting. Chris Shula is exciting. Halfley's off the board now, right? But those guys are exciting. Then you have Vance Joseph, no thanks. Robert Saleh, no thanks. Maybe you could make an argument for Steve Spagnuolo if he gets a good offensive coordinator like Spagnuolo Daboll. Like, but again, like this is not the Ben Johnson. There's no Ben Johnson coming through that door. The Bills fired Sean McDermott, and there is no clear, logical plan A. The best we can probably come up with at this point is Clint Kubiak. And if it's not Clint, I think most of Bills Mafia will be very, very, very upset. Because I think, speaking for the Mafia, I think most people would want it to be an offensive guy. If it's a defensive guy, I think most Bills fans will be very, very, very underwhelmed.
I think they will, but I also think that I do think that Bills fans would probably, and again, maybe I'm projecting, but I think that Bills fans would be more okay. I'll say more okay with, let's say, a Jesse Minter and maybe a Mike McDaniel situation at OC.
I forgot to add McDaniel.
Like if Jesse Minter was the head coach and Mike McDaniel maybe was the OC, then they would like a Brian Dable OC kind of like someone else DC. Like I think that people could wrap their heads around that being a better combination.
And here's the next thing, right? Right? Like Mike McDaniel, because I forgot to mention him. Again, I don't think he's head coaching material, which is why I'm hesitant to. I threw his name out there saying he's not. I think most Bills fans agree he's not head coaching material. He is the best play call on the market, period, hands down, end of story. He is the best schemer of offense on the market right now. Would you agree with that?
He's a great play caller. Absolutely. Great. And the way, did you watch that Darren Waller conversation with Johnny Manziel? I mean, Darren Waller was talking about Mike McDaniel and his brain and just like scheming up where to put guys. Like it was incredible. Like it was absolutely incredible.
Here's what I am saying. Again,
not as a head coach. Again, not as a head coach.
No,
as an offensive coordinator.
Here's where the conversation has to go, right? Because Bob R is coming in. No. Mike Check's coming in saying he's offensive coordinator. If he is that good of an offensive play caller, do you try to make him your head coach? Because Josh Allen's turning 30. He needs that run game to take the pressure off him. There was a heck of a run game in Miami. His run concepts, every single film person just salivates over his run concepts and what he did with Devin A-Chain, right? Like if you're the Bills, hey, we can get Mike McDaniel and we can go pay for Jim Schwartz, or we can do this, or we can do that. Like, again, is the juice worth the squeeze? Do you think you can put the infrastructure around him in place, even if it's just, it worked for 1 year and then it fell apart, but that 1 year got you the Super Bowl? Like, you know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Like, is that juice worth the squeeze? He is the best offensive mind available right now.
That's true.
Again, like He's number 2 on my list behind Clint Kubiak. He's number 2. And I know that that's going to be controversial.
Okay, well,
I know
let's
it
ask the
is.
comment section. If they had to
But
pick between Mike McDaniel or one of Brian Daboll or Joe Brady, who are you
yeah.
taking? If
And then you
if
can,
those are your options.
yeah. So let us know in the comment section what you think, because the rumor is Mike McDaniel is going to Tampa Bay as an offensive coordinator. So maybe the Bills can lure him now. They got more time. But the Bills, if they're hiring Chris Shula, or if they're hiring any of these other guys, then we're waiting a while for them to make that decision. While we wait for the comment section to put their comments in, we got a couple of super chats coming in. Always thank you, Arthur Kraft 5610. He comes in and says, nobody knows who'll be good. 2021 top guys were Brandon Staley. 2022 was McDaniel. 2020 was Matt Rule. Everyone thinks they're getting the next McVay, but they're probably getting Eberflus. And that's when we say that the grass isn't always greener, right? Like,
We know.
Jason
But
M
you
comes in
got
and
to
says,
the point. You're at the point in the arc of Josh Allen that you have to try now.
Yeah. We got Jason M9 coming in saying, I am only okay if we hire an OC-minded coach. Otherwise, why did we do this? Lose a successful OC every year or two? At least lean into Josh's success long-term by giving him stability on the offense. And I agree.
That's
but
a
again,
good point.
the pickings are just so slim. But you have Josh Allen going into his year 30 season. It's about surrounding him with weapons and giving him easy buttons and letting him age kind of the way Ben Roethlisberger aged. I mean, I know like the last couple of years of Ben Roethlisberger got ugly, but Ben Roethlisberger had success into his 30s, and he was a very, I think, similar quarterback. Obviously, Josh Allen's a better runner, but again, it's just about finding an offensive coach to create a structure around Josh Allen that'll allow him to age gracefully. A GM that needs to look in the mirror and go find weapons for Josh Allen so he can sort of age gracefully into this at this position of quarterback. Like, you don't want Josh Allen just getting his shit wrecked every single week. And you can't have him being Superman and putting on that cape every single year, because 33-year-old Josh Allen might not physically be capable of doing that. Right. Stefanski's off the board. That stinks. And I saw someone in the comment section mention that. And that's why dude, if it's not Clint Kubiak, I keep going back to Mike McDaniel. I do. Like, I know people are going to want to make fun of it, but, and then the question becomes, who do we get to be defensive coordinator? I don't know. Mike McDaniel replaced Brian Flores. Do you think there's any bad blood there? I don't know if there'd be any bad blood there, but
their paths didn't cross, right?
I don't think Jim Schwartz is a free agent, so you're not probably going to be able to get your hands on him. But there are a couple of good DCs that'll probably become available as these coaching staff shuffle around that you can go out and get. So it'll be interesting, man. How about Sean McDermott's future? What do we think about where Sean McDermott might end up? Takes a year off, takes one of these jobs. He apparently told his coaching staff today. Miami just hired Jeff Hafley. So Miami's off the board.
Well, that's good then. Dude, you know who should hire him? You know who should hire him? Maybe, I mean, honestly, like the Cardinals.
So to me, people say Pittsburgh because he's a Pennsylvania guy, even though he's more towards Philly. But I think Pittsburgh's going to go young, like they always do. They're going to try to find that next Tomlin, that next Cowher, etc. But Sean McDermott would be a fit there, but they don't have a quarterback. Baltimore, that's a weird fit with Lamar. I just don't know if that would work. The Titans make a ton of sense, but they're apparently zeroing in on a guy like Matt Nagy. So who knows?
The
Titans going into a new
Titans are entering Jets and Browns like territory.
They got a young quarterback in Cam Ward. Yeah. They got Jeffrey Simmons. Like, Tennessee would be a fit. Selfishly, I want him to come to Arizona. I think he would. I think he'd be great. Somebody joked that he probably couldn't handle the sun in Arizona with his skin issues. Not to make light of that or anything, but
they could cover up. They could close the dome.
Yeah. He may need to stay away from sunshine teams, but they play in a dome, right? Like, so, and then all the teams they play are in domes. They play LA. They play, well, not Seattle's not in a dome, and they play. Why am I blanking on the other team? They're all good. San Francisco, right? You're not going to deal with too much sun there. So, to me, I would love it if he came out to Arizona. I think they got the pieces on defense that he would like too. They got Montez Sweat. They got, or not Montez Sweat, excuse me, Josh Sweat. They've got Darius Robinson and Walter Nolan in the middle of that defense. They've got Will Johnson. They got Buda Baker. They got DTD. DTD Rabbit. Like, they got some guys on defense that I think he could work with. He could bring Trey White with him to play opposite Will Johnson. He could bring Matt Milano and Shaq Thompson with him to play linebacker, to go along and use Mac Wilson like he uses, Dorian Williams. Like, that defense, him and Jonathan Gannon, I think, are a little similar in that regard. And I think he could have some success with that defense right away. Obviously, the issue is quarterback. Like, what are you going to do? Jacoby Brissett and draft Ty Simpson at 3? Like, that's the issue with Arizona, right? But I think the pieces that are there in Arizona, if Arizona was smart, if Michael Bidwell and Monty Ossenford are smart, which I'm not sure they are, they'd be blowing up Sean McDermott's phone tonight, trying to get him out to the desert, at least to try to convince him to come coach that football team. And I would love it. Like, again, have I ripped him, right, for years and years and years, right, thinking enough is enough, nothing changes. Yes, I have, 100% on that. But I think he's a great man. I think he's a great coach. It just didn't work out here. And I would love to come root for him out here in the desert and get to see it happen in my own back door, him try to rebuild that franchise. But also, do you really want to be in a division with Seattle, San Francisco, LA?
It's brutal.
Brutal.
Cleveland people mentioned that's kind of an interesting one. They have great defensive pieces.
From what I heard, Udinsky's the leader in the clubhouse there, because Andrew Barry's just a different dude. Their GM.
That's true. But the Cardinals would be nice out of the AFC. A team that I could like kind of sort of root for out of the corner of my eye.
Vegas, again, they have a lot they need to fix there, but you could have Fernando Mendoza, you could have Ashton Genty, Brock Bowers, right? Like, that's a team that needs facility. But is Tom Brady going to hire Sean McDermott? I don't know. Probably not.
And also, like, that's a tough division to go into also, right?
Yeah,
AFC tough. West. So,
yeah. Tennessee, at the end of the day, Tennessee probably makes the most sense. Cam Ward,
they do. That's a division that every year is kind of like, you never really quite know. Texans seem to have kind of the stability there, but we saw the Colts early in the season kind of do some good things with the Jags. Obviously won the division this year, but man, like, you just never quite know with the South divisions and both the AFC and the NFC. So,
all right, Dave. Any final thoughts right out here? I know we didn't talk Bills Broncos, but honestly, that's just such old news.
I don't even want to talk Bills Broncos, man. I don't want to. Look, to me, this whole thing just reeks of not having a plan. I really hope there is a plan. I hope there's some smoke to the fire around what Jeremy White said about Clint Kubiak. I'm kind of like hanging my hat on just that one thing he said, and so we'll see what happens here. But
I think best case scenario, if you're the Buffalo Bills, we end up with Clint Kubiak. We end up with a veteran defensive coordinator. Brandon Beane decides to take the Philadelphia Eagles approach, and he kicks a lot of cans down the road to frees up some cap space, makes a trade for a Waddle or an AJ Brown, drafts a receiver high, reloads that defensive line with that money. Maybe goes out and chases an Alec Pierce, right? Like, I think if you're the Buffalo Bills, heavy investment at wide receiver, fortify the safety and linebacker spot, more heavy investments in the defensive line. Maybe Brandon Beane stepping away from the GM spot and Terrence Gray sliding in after the draft. I think these are all like best case scenarios if you're the Buffalo. Like, if we end up, kicking off the season in our new stadium, and Terrence Gray's our GM and Brandon Beane's our president of football ops, we got Clint Kubiak on the sideline, and we got two legit boundary receivers with Khalil Shakir in the slot, and a defense that's respectable on paper with a coordinator who's respectable on paper. I'll call that a win, right? Like, I think most Bills fans would call that a win, but that brings up the last part that kind of stings a little bit. Again, right? Everyone, I think, agrees it was the right time to move on from Sean McDermott, even if we don't agree with the circumstances and Brandon Beane not going along with him. It really sucks that guy doesn't get to break in the new stadium. It really sucks.
I know.
Yeah.
In fact, what'll probably happen is he'll get hired somewhere, and then the NFL will schedule week 1 Sean McDermott's new team to come into New Highmark Stadium for week 1. That would be an all-time schedule kind of like finesse from the NFL.
Sweet Spike comes in and says, what's up with the roster construction versus the cap? Well, that's the conversation we are going to have in the coming weeks. Over the next couple of weeks, we're going to do our typical end of the year show. We deconstruct the roster. So at some point, we're going to go position by position. Who's a free agent? Who's a possible cap casualty? Who's somebody we can renegotiate their deal, kick the can down the road, lower their cap hits? Like, we're going to look at the Buffalo Bills. We're going to break it down to the skeleton. Who are the core guys? Who are the guys that need to be replaced? Who are the guys that what are the position groups we need to scout and look at in the draft and free agency and all that stuff? So we'll get to that in the coming weeks. We'll have our typical Senior Bowl review, our combine review, our NFL free agency reviews, all leading up to the 2026 NFL draft, which is in Pittsburgh.
Yep. And we'll do, I'm sure Greg will do salary cap extravaganza show that we'll be part of. We always have fun with that.
Yeah.
But as far as like, I don't know, I know next week I'm not going to be available for the Monday show. So we'll see what we do for that. We may just take a week off leading up into the Super Bowl. We'll see. I don't think Greg and Aaron are doing any shows next week. So we'll figure that out for you all. Yeah. But yeah, we'll have all the same great shows leading into the early parts of free agency, Senior Bowl, all that, and ultimately with the draft as well. So yep, another season in the books.
Thank you guys so much for joining us. As always, we really appreciate you. This show would not be possible without you. Again, so many things that like we wouldn't even talk about. We talk about because you guys bring it up in the comment section. So you guys drive the conversation as you do every week, and it's awesome. We appreciate you. If you're looking to help us out, number one, smash that like button, helps with the algorithm. Number two, click that share button, share on social media, share with friends, family, anyone. We want to spread this thing through word of mouth. And then last but not least, when the show is done being live, leave a comment. Like, who do you want to be the next head coach? Do you think Brandon Beane should have been fired? What is your favorite Sean McDermott Bills memory? Do you think, who would you put Mike McDaniel above? Would you put Mike McDaniel above Brian Daboll? Would you put Mike McDaniel above Davis Webb? Would you put Mike McDaniel above Joe Brady? Would you put Mike McDaniel above Jesse Minter or Chris Shula? So share where you would put Mike McDaniel on the head coaching spectrum. To me, that's the number one thing that I really liked about our conversation today was I really got to flesh out my thoughts and feelings on Mike McDaniel. So that's the big takeaway I'm going to have from today. So thank you guys so much. Super appreciate it. And as always, go Bills.
Go Bills.
Thank you for watching tonight's episode of the Air Raid Hour. Make sure to hit that like button on the way out. If you are catching the show on demand, leave a reply in the comment section and we will respond over the course of the week. You can always listen to every episode next day on all major podcasting platforms, including Apple Podcasts and Spotify by searching Air Raid Buffalo. Thank you for your continued support, and as always, go Bills!